What's up, Banter fam? Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Miles, and in today's show, I'm going to be running over a token that I personally believe could be the next BNB and could be a future top 10 token in the crypto market. Without further ado, let's get straight into the show. Now, if you guys watched our Sunday show, we basically did like a DGen's Den live trading comp, and we went through some trading setups. We actually talked about this ETH short, which actually played out really nicely. So congratulations to anyone that got on this ETH short. If we look at the charts, I think we had it around 1280. So since then, we've had a nice 9% pullback in the ETH price. Obviously, it's bouncing a bit now, but to everyone that took that short, congrats, because that was quite a nice trade live on the show. And thanks for hanging out with us, because that was a really fun show, and we're going to be doing it again every single Sunday. So congrats to everyone that took that short. At the moment, I'm having a look at the Bitcoin price. Important to note, I'm recording this a couple hours before it goes live. But what I'm currently looking at is a short setup at the moment. So personally, I find it a little hard to believe that we're going to get this massive rally in the short term. Now, I know Sheldon recently posted some longs with the break of trend above 20.8, and I think those longs are still valid. However, I do believe that the 21,500 region has been a major region of resistance, and I'm going to continue to short this resistance until we're proven wrong on this trend. So we can see we've had multiple touches of this line, and if we go back through the past few weeks, we're continually bouncing off resistance here. Now, we do have the 50 EMA, which we are approaching at the moment. So what we would want to see, to get a nice short setup is actually a break of this trend, and then pushing upwards more towards the 21.5 region, and between 21.5 and 21.8, those are the at the moment. Now, the reason I'm looking at shorting this market a little more than I am longing is because in a market that is generally trending downwards, you have a much better percentage chance over a large period of time if you take trades that are actually in line with the market. For example, if the market is actually pumping and we're in a bull run and things are going crazy, the percentage bet is to take more longs than you take shorts. However, in this market, I'm taking more shorts than I'm taking longs. Obviously, taking advantage of some of the swings, some of the reversals for long patterns, but overall, I'm shorting more than I'm longing, because you can't fight the trend. As Kyle says on his show, the trend is the trend is your friend until the end of the trend. So right now, I'm just playing the trend at the moment. I said on Sunday's show, we talked a little bit about whether I thought a bottom was in, and I do think that there is likely further downside to come. That isn't really altering my DCA plans at the moment. I still have a very structured buying plan that I'm sticking to. But in terms of these trades, I am trading with the expectation that we see lower levels. So that's kind of my region here for a short at the moment. But obviously, if we did break above that trend, then you want to have your stop loss quite tight above the last high to ensure that you're not getting liquidated or anything. Remember, guys, if you do want to trade, make sure to sign up to BYBIT. I don't know how long this will go for, but right now, you've got an amazing chance to get a $4,200 bonus. So while you still can, I highly recommend signing up and getting involved, because the $4,200 bonus is very, very good. And also, we're going to be 10xing accounts live on the show, live on the main show, around 10x's your account. So if you sign up for BYBIT, there's a link in the description. If you click this link, you can sign up and get involved. And actually, at the moment, there is a world trading series. So if you have a BYBIT account and you have $500 to trade with, you can actually take part in the trading series. And Sheldon has a team that he's building, and potentially, there's millions to be made. I think the top 10 get some very, very nice prizes. So if you're not already involved in that, Sheldon has a squad that you can sign up to. And if you use my BYBIT link in the description to sign up, then you can get involved in that challenge, which I think could be quite advantageous. I'm personally getting involved in the challenge. I'm hoping that I can do well on that. But at the moment, I'm really using trading as a way to keep the dollars flowing, because we all know, the power of long-term holding. We know the power of DCAing. But at the moment, I'm also using trading as a proxy to kind of keep those dollars ticking over in a bear market, because, obviously we need to keep the money flowing. With DeFi yields kind of drying up a little bit, I'm using trading a little bit more to keep that process flowing. So moving on, I have a big token that I want to talk about today, and I have a trend that I think could be quite prominent in the next cycle, but potentially even sooner, because we are getting signs that this trend is really starting to pick up. And that trend revolves around Sam Bankman-Fried. The trend revolves around these exchange tokens. And there's been a massive shift in crypto, and this shift kind of comes off the back of Sam effectively trying to take over the entire market. So today we did see, or yesterday we saw that Bankman-Fried was trying to seek a path to buy Robinhood. Now this is massive, massive news. If you guys don't know what Robinhood is, it's a stock exchange. You can also trade crypto on it. It's a very, very big exchange in the US. You can trade equities, you can trade assets, and Robinhood is basically that gap between the retail market and actually owning these commodities. Now, if SBF did jump in and acquired Robinhood, I know he already has roughly a 7 to an 8% stake in the company. If he upped this and increased his equity in the company, I think this could, be massive for his entire endeavor because, FTX is really going out and making these strategic acquisitions. Now, it's important to note that after this kind of rumor was doing the rounds, Sam actually said that he wasn't investing, so he kind of took a bit of a backseat approach. But at the same time, I mean, if you were buying Robinhood, would you really want the entire market to know you were buying it? Probably not. That probably affects the valuation. So I don't blame Sam for not talking about it, but I think it is important to note that he did deny this. However, I think it's pretty big news and it's something we got to keep our eye on because it could have pretty massive ramifications across crypto, at least in relation to FTX specifically. Now, Kevin said if FTX buys Robinhood, the next bull run is going to be even more insane. He says, I hope these exchanges stop focusing on listing thousands of shitcoins and money JPEGs that fail and actually encourage the adoption of Bitcoin and ETH. And I think this is true to an extent because Robinhood is really that kind of bridge between retail and they're focusing more on the primary assets. They're very selective about the assets that they put onto these exchanges. So having an asset like that under FTX's basket, I think would be very, very bullish for the next bull run. Now, Packy came out and said, central bank is dumb. Because there's been kind of a lot of accusations or at least theories that FTX is kind of operating like a central bank at the moment, effectively like bailing out all these crypto companies throughout this bear market. Now, FTX, he says, is like this crashes Berkshire, who, if you didn't know, at the height of the GFC, they were stepping in and making absurdly good stock investments in Goldman at the time. So, Warren Buffett was very strategic at the time during that big, big crash in 2008 to 2010. And he was actually acquiring a lot of these assets that were beat down. And we saw his net worth almost double in the years that preceded that bear market. So this is something that's interesting to note because essentially what they did was restore confidence and make money at the same time. And what FTX is doing or what Sam's doing is he's trying to come in and he's trying to bail out these companies, bail out these entities which are struggling, facing liquidity issues, facing issues to do with insolvency. And he's stepping in and getting companies for bargain basement prices. And there's no better example of this than BlockFi. Now, there's been rumors that Sam wants to fully take over BlockFi after he issued them a credit facility. Now, BlockFi, if you guys don't know, I'm pretty sure that was valued as a $6 billion asset. At the moment, based on the current valuation, the valuation of BlockFi is less than $1 billion. So you're getting that at 20% of the value that it was just a couple of years ago. Now, what FTX is actually doing is they came in and gave them this credit facility. So this was an indication, one of the first indications that BlockFi was actually struggling and that they needed help and that they were facing liquidity issues. So what FTX did is they came in, they said, okay, here's $250 million. And in that clause, there was an option to actually purchase equity in BlockFi for basically free. So if BlockFi faced issues, FTX could come in and kind of scoop it up for free. So I kind of view what Sam's doing is he's kind of feasting on these carcasses at the moment. These view kind of BlockFi as this dead body, or at least it's looked like it was becoming a dead body. And Sam's coming in like a vulture, and he's swooping in and eating from these carcasses and basically taking advantage of the position he's in terms of cash. So I explained this on my Twitter, and I said FTX granted BlockFi $50 million credit facility, and I said it's positioned FTX to be a dominant force for years to come. And think about it this way, I mean, if Sam really is like the 2022 version of Berkshire, essentially what he's doing is he's using this bear market as a chance to position himself through acquisitions to become the king, because the next bull market rolls around and he's got now profitable companies all under his belt, whether that be Robinhood, whether that be BlockFi. We know he extended credit lines to Voyager. We know he was even talking about, a potential Celsius move. So in the next bull run, he's positioning himself to be that real dominant force behind CZ. And there is a play that I'm going to get to at the end of the show that I think you can use to capitalize off this narrative. Framing pick for you guys right now kind of actually happened over the last Will Clemente said the main market native risk to Bitcoin has been contagion. So we've seen FTX strike deals with BlockFi, strike deals with Voyager, and now Goldman Sachs has been rumored to buy Celsius's assets. Now, in terms of the Goldman Sachs deal, that hasn't fully gone through. In fact, there's even been word that was just a bit of a rumor. However, if there was truth to that, then I think that's absolutely massive, because any concern around these firms has now been alleviated. Because, if you guys remember, just a week ago or 2 weeks ago, everyone was panicking. It was this frenzy of like, how far is this contagion going to spread? How far are these forced liquidations going to spread? Now, if no one steps in and if no one takes action and actually helps prop up these companies, and you let a BlockFi fail, you let a Celsius fail, you let a Voyager fail, potentially there was rumors that, even A16 had some issues and all these other companies, Nexo had some issues. If you let these companies fail, that just leads to further contagion, and it leads to spiraling liquidations. It's part of the reason why Bitcoin and ETH were actually sold off so much heavier than these other altcoins. It's because those were the assets that were primarily held by these borrowing lending platforms and held by these major institutions, and those were the ones that were forced to liquidate. So we need these companies like FTX coming in and underpinning this market, or we're going to run the risk of this liquidation flash sale. And this is the point Will's making here, that participants should feel a lot more comfortable. And I personally feel more comfortable, having someone like an SBF that's coming in and actually helping prop up this market. So we know SBF is kind of positioning FTX to be, that major exchange in the future that not only has a basket of assets related to crypto, but has their tentacles into TradFi and has a certain across the industry as a whole. But how can you actually benefit from that trade? Like, how can you, as a consumer and a viewer, actually benefit from SBF's dominance? Now, there's a couple players in this video that I want to talk about that I think are personally good ways to get exposure to this narrative, because it's a very strong narrative. And they're two players that I'm personally accumulating right now. So I'm not waiting, I'm DCAing now, and I'll be DCAing for a long time to come into these assets. Now, the first one is FTT. Now, if you guys don't know, the FTT token, kind of like the BNB token, is the major token powering the FTX exchange. So it's basically an exchange token, but it operates a little bit differently to these other projects like BNB and CRO, which is Crypto.com's exchange token. Now, FTT is very, very interesting. It has some very interesting mechanisms that differentiate itself. So what it is if you hold the FTX token and you stake that token, you get benefits from using the platform. So you have an incentive to hold these tokens, because if you stake the token, you actually get a rebate. So if you hold it, you get a fee discount of over 3 to 60%. So if you hold the FTT token, you can stake it in FTX, and every time you trade, get up to a 60% discount on your trades. This is the first mechanism of its tokenomics which implement demand for FTT. Because if it was simply just a token that was sitting there operating like a stable coin, there'd be no demand for it, and there'd be no reason why its price should increase over time. But having these incentives to hold the token is one of the major ways that it accrues value. Now, the biggest way that the FTT token accrues value is actually through its buyback and its burn. So what FTX is doing is they're taking 33% of the total fees. So let's say they make $1 million. They're taking $330,000 of that million, and they're using that to buy back FTX. So they're actually taking the revenue that they're making off the trading fees. And unlike other exchanges, they're using them to buy back and burn FTT tokens. So that's massive, because basically by buying FTT, what you're betting on is the adoption of the FTX exchange, because obviously the more people that trade on FTX, the more FTT tokens are burnt, the more the FTT token can appreciate in price, basically just due to basic supply and demand. If something's burnt and has the same amount of linear demand, then obviously the token price is going to increase. But we have seen in the past with these buybacks, it's actually had a two-prong effect, because you have the buybacks, which are decreasing the supply of the tokens, but then you have the demand, which actually increases because people are speculating on the burn. So it kind of has a two-pronged approach where you're getting the benefit of the token burn, but then the token price also goes up due to demand side factors, because there's a lot of speculation on the buybacks, which is why we saw Luna explode to $130, because there was so much speculation on one day the burn becoming such a significant factor that people were willing to kind of front run that narrative. Now, a similar thing can happen for a token like FTX. I'm going to go through some negatives as well because I want this to be an objective look at this token and actually give you guys a full picture, but I'm just kind of explaining how it works first. I think the buyback and the burn mechanism is massive for FTX. And that's one of the reasons why, if you're betting on Sam and if you think this BlockFi acquisition is big and potentially a Robinhood deal and the loans that I'm going to show you in a second, if you think these are massive factors which are positioning SBF for success, and obviously he's doing that through FTX, then owning the FTT token becomes a bet on Sam's success. Now, if you don't believe in Sam, don't buy the token. It's as simple as that. But if you do believe in Sam and you believe that how he's positioning himself right now will reap the rewards in a bull market, then FTT becomes a token that you could potentially use to expose yourself to that upside. Now, I want to point out the key differences between a token like BNB and a token like FTX. So, FTT, sorry. So BNB is the coin that powers the Binance ecosystem and the Binance exchange. When we first saw the BNB token launch, it was similar to FTX in the sense that it was mainly geared towards buybacks and being utilized and staked on Binance itself. So it didn't have a chain, it didn't have dApps on the chain. It was used to settle goods and services essentially. But now what BNB did is they took that mechanism and then they paired it with BSC as well. So what they did was they took the token itself and then they made that the gas token for the exchange. And this resulted in monumental growth for BNB. It went from, I think, like almost $100 all the way up to $600, as we can see on the chart here. And it was less than $30 at one point in November, and then it hit highs of 600 because it had that really big burn mechanism which supported the growth of the ecosystem. Now, FTT, it doesn't have that through its chain, but what it does have is a higher proportionate amount of burns compared to what BNB did at the time. So it's not gearing itself, it's gearing itself to be an exchange token, which is basically the main token that's utilized across FTX. So that is the major difference between the two. One is operating as a chain right now, and one is operating, as a token that can use to be staked, provide fee rebates to holders, incentivize the ecosystem, etc. So that's one of the major differences. Now, I think it's important to note that in the very beginning, BNB didn't have plans to become a chain, and then it became a chain. So a similar thing can happen for FTT. Maybe one day they decide to actually make this a chain, and maybe, you never know, Sam's, pretty savvy with this stuff. Maybe they implement it one day to have more utility, and that's kind of the bet you're making, when you're betting on Sam, that he's going to continue to provide utility for the token. If we actually look at the ratio of market cap to 20-hour volume, we can see that FTT has the lowest ratio apart from HTB, which is a very small exchange. So we're actually buying at a better cost in terms of market cap to 24-hour volume ratio in an FTT versus a BNB, which I also think, is another reason why I personally am DCAing more heavily into FTT than I am into BNB. We saw that they're raising a token DAO, 70 million of the community, which is going to be used in order to kind of incentivize community-led projects and crypto education, which is, another big piece of news. We know they're committed to continuing to incentivize this ecosystem, and we all know how important these incentives are to actually, spur growth in an ecosystem. So I think the FTT DAO is cool as well. And kind of how I would summarize this play is like, if you're betting on CZ being a big winner in the future, and I think he will be, then, you want to be buying BNB because that is the token that's giving you the most upside to CZ's, what CZ is building. Whereas if you're betting on SBF, you want to be buying FTT, but you also want to be buying Sol, because Sol at the end of the day is his main focus when it comes to becoming a chain. So FTT, yes, that's the exchange token that's powering FTX, but then Solana is very integrated into FTX's ecosystem. We know how much of an investment FTX and Alameda, Sam's research division has in Solana, and they actually bought after ICO. So FTX made their big investment after the ICO even took place, which is very interesting. So in this tweet, basically, that is how I would summarize it. If you're betting on Sam, FTT and Sol become the logical bets versus a BNB. And we can see over time, FTX has actually gained market share on these other exchanges. I think it's the third biggest exchange now behind Binance and Coinbase. And in the last week, it actually did more trading volume than Coinbase. So we're seeing kind of a shift happen. And I think personally, FTX will be the dominant player alongside Binance. If I look 5 years in the future, those are the two chains that, I think, or the two exchanges that I think will be most prominent. Solana is an obvious bet in terms of gaining upside to SBF's dominance alongside FTT. And, that's one I'm watching heavily as well. So just, a little bit of a market cap comparison here. FTT is still roughly a 10.5x from BNB. So I do think you still have that major upside in terms of in the next bull run, not only gaining the upside from the entire market cap increasing, but also gaining the upside of the discrepancy between FTT and BNB. Because if FTX genuinely starts to challenge Binance, then it's only logical to assume that this gap will decrease. That would see FTT at a token price of 287. Two caveats. First caveat being BNB is a chain, so it has extra utility, and I don't think as a direct comparison, FTT is as good as BNB. And my other caveat would be that Sam is at the top of his game right now. And I was talking to Ran about this the other day, and he kind of said, I love FTT. I think it's a great investment, but the only issue I have is I feel like I'm buying into the hype. Ran said, I feel like I'm buying into Sam at the peak. Like, he's making all these acquisitions, people are starting to worship him. Like, should we wait for an opportunity where some of that hype dies down? And I think that's a genuine concern, that if FTX is at the top of their game, then maybe you don't want to buy into the hype. But I guess my counterpoint to that would be, in terms of upside, looking at its competitors, BNB, CRO, it still has significant upside. And at the same time, I believe in FTX enough as being like a major figure to be allocating here. So what's my allocation strategy? You can probably gauge by the sentiment of the video that I am bullish on FTT as a token. Well, I'm treating it like my other L1 holdings at the moment, and I'm continuing to DCA over the next few months. I can't pick the bottom. As much as I fancy my chances of getting a very good entry, I can't see it all. I don't have a crystal ball. So my strategy for accumulating a token like FTT is to DCA over time. And I'm not afraid of taking a position now and continuing to build on that position, because it could go to 15, it could go to 10. But if I truly believe this to be $100, $200, $300 asset one day, then whether I DCA at 5, at 10, at 15, it doesn't make much of a difference to me. So looking at the chart here, we can see that we are hovering in this range, this $20 to $30 range. We can see that we are approaching the 100 EMA. That's going to be major resistance. However, overall, in terms of its setup, it hasn't been hit as much as these other alts. It has shown relative strength, which indicates to me that the market is still pricing in Sam's dominance a little higher than they are some of these other chains. So it's definitely one I'm looking at. I'd love entry sub $10. I would love that. And I'll definitely be keeping cash on the side in case I end up getting those entries. But for now, I'm continuing to treat it like my other altcoin positions and DCA into a position over time. It is the 20th ranked token on CoinGecko right now. I think it has genuine potential to be a top 10 asset. I mean, potentially top 5. Solana and FTT, I think, are both well positioned to become assets in that caliber alongside Ethereum, Bitcoin, XRP. So it's just something we have to keep our eye on. And that's my play that I can potentially see as being the next BNB in terms of market cap. Remember, if you do want to trade any of these assets, make sure to sign up for a link in the description in order to sign up to BYBIT. You do get a $4,200 deposit bonus depending on how much you deposit. The World Trading Series is at the moment. It is the perfect time to sign up. We don't know how long the deposit bonus will go for, so why not just take advantage while you still can? Get your hands on a BYBIT account, link in the description, and take advantage and trade with us. We have a lot of fun on the shows. I've been trading on Sundays. Sheldon's doing his live trading. It's a really exciting time to be involved in the community and to get trading as well. So I highly recommend doing that. But thank you guys for tuning into the show. I will see you in a couple days. I'm still in Bali right now. The internet's a bit dodgy. That's why we are recording on a pre-record. But excited to see you guys live on Sunday, and I will catch you in the next show. See you later. Peace out.